Hi everyone. We're gonna still be talking about spring this week. So I have a great little story about a little boy and he wants to grow a garden. So it's called The Curious Garden and it's written by Peter Brown and he is both the author and the illustrator. That means he does both. He draws the pictures and he writes the words. So let's take a look at the cover and think about what might happen in this story. What do you see? Let's take a minute and we'll put on our thinking caps and we'll turn up our listening ears and let's get started with The Curious Garden by Peter Brown. There was once a city without gardens or trees or greenery of any kind. Most people spent their time indoors, and as you can imagine, it was a very dreary place. So take a look at the pictures. What do you see? Does it look like the front cover or does it look kind of sad? It all looks the same, huh? However, there was one little boy who loved being outside. Even on dreary days while everyone else stayed inside, you could always find Liam happily splashing through the neighborhood. It was on one such morning that Liam made a surprising discovery. He was wandering around the old railway, as he did from time to time, when he stumbled upon the dark stairwell leading up to the tracks. The railway had stopped working long ago, and since Liam had always wanted to explore the tracks, there was only one thing for the curious boy to do. So he's out all by himself. He's looking for something to do. He loves to be outside. And he wants to go on an expedition. Liam ran up the stairs and pushed open the door and stepped out onto the railway. The first thing he saw was a lonely patch of color. Wildflowers and plants were the last things he expected to find up there. But when he took a closer look, it had become clear that the plants were dying, and they needed a gardener. So Liam found these plants, and they weren't doing so well. The plants weren't healthy. So what do you think he's going to do? Do you think he's going to be brave and rescue those plants? He looks kind of sad, doesn't he? I bet he helps the plants. Let's keep reading. Liam may not have been a gardener, but he knew that he could help. So he went to the railway the next day and got to work. The flowers nearby drowned and he had a few pruning problems, but the plants patiently waited while Liam found better ways of gardening. I think he's singing to them. Didn't we learn that plants like music? As the weeks rolled by, Liam began to feel like a real gardener, and as the plants began to feel like a real garden again. So he started taking care of them. He's trimming them, he's watering them, he's even singing to them. They're starting to look a little better over here, aren't they? Most gardens stay in one place, but this was not an ordinary garden. With miles of open railway ahead of it, the garden was growing restless, and it wanted to explore. Though the tough little weeds and mosses were the first to move, they propped up farther and farther down the tracks and were closely followed by the more delicate plants. Over the next few months, Liam and the Curious Garden explored every corner of the railway. So it took just a little bit of care, and look, now the garden is growing. It doesn't look like it did over here. It's still a little kind of sad over here. Now it's really starting to grow. Do you think he's going to keep trying to fix it? Whoa, look at this page. I see a blue sky and I see lots of flowers. Look at all these flowers. It's a pretty picture, huh? Uh-oh. What do you think's happening on this page? Do you think the garden's gonna spread over here too? It kind of looks like it, doesn't it? We got some flowers over here. And there's some broken flowers over here. Keep thinking, what do you think's gonna happen? After spending his spring and summer and autumn with the garden, Liam's time on the railway was finally interrupted by winter. Heavy blankets of snow fell on the city that season, and for the first time since he became a gardener, Liam could not visit the plants. So what season do you get snow? Do you get snow in winter? I think that's what season they're in here. And he can't garden in the winter, can he? So the plants go to sleep when it's wintertime. And he's really sad. He can't do his hobby. He can't help the plants. Do you think the plants are going to survive? Rather than waste his winter worrying about the garden, Liam spent it preparing for the spring. After 3 cold months, the snow finally began to melt, and Liam rolled his new gardening gear over to the railway. So he spent that winter trying to become a better gardener. Do you think his garden's going to get bigger or smaller this spring? Winter had taken a toll on the garden, but thanks to Liam's planting, his handy new tools, and a little help from the sun, the plants soon woke from their winter sleep. So it was a hard winter and the plants were kind of sick, but I see him cutting them and watering them, and it looks like down here they're starting to grow again. The garden had always wanted to explore the rest of the city, and that spring it was finally ready to make its move. Once again, the tough little weeds and the mosses set out first. They popped up farther and farther from the railway and closely followed the more delicate plants. The garden was especially curious about the old and forgotten things. So the garden started to grow everywhere. It grew in old trucks. It grew wherever it could go. A few plants popped up where they didn't belong. Others mysteriously popped up all at once. So they started growing on the stop signs and in flower pots. But the most surprising thing that popped up were all the new gardeners. So now it looks like he has some friends who are helping him grow the garden and take care of it. There's grass on the steps. There's garden over here. There's gardens on top of old buildings. Things are really starting to grow. Many years later, the entire city had blossomed. But of all the new gardens, Liam's favorite was where it all had began. So the city looks really different now, doesn't it? I think that's the last page. There you go. Look at this page. It looks really different from the first page, doesn't it? Let's go back. It's kind of sad over here, not a lot of bright colors. And now, look at all that work, all because one little boy had a dream. I really like that story, and I hope you guys did too. So maybe you can get out and grow something over our spring break. Have a great day. Bye, everyone.